We'll start. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Technology is ready. Are people the talent question in the age of AI? I am Vivek Tyagi, business head at Teamlease Digital, and I will be your host for today's discussion. Over the past few years, we have seen AI move from experimentation to execution. What was once a technology conversation is now a business conversation. Organizations are investing heavily in AI, new tools are emerging every week, and leaders across industries are exploring how AI can improve productivity, decision making, and innovation. Yet, despite all this momentum, one question persists. Are people keeping pace with the technology? Recent studies show that while 86% of employees are already using AI at work, only 24% feel fully equipped to use it effectively. At the same time, 77% of managers believe their teams are doing just fine. And this gap between perception and reality highlights one of the biggest challenges organizations face today. The conversation probably is no longer about whether AI will change work, it already has. So, the real question is how organizations, leaders, and professionals can prepare themselves for a future where AI becomes embedded in everyday's work. So, today we will discuss workforce readiness, skills, leadership, reskilling, and what is it truly means to become AI ready in a rapidly changing world. We would love to be an interactive session. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. We will be taking them up towards the end of the today's webinar. And before we begin, I am delighted to introduce our speaker, Mr. Ganesh Sahai, Global CTO at Nagarro, and IIT and IIM alumnus. Ganesh brings more than 25 years of experience across technology leadership, innovation, entrepreneurship, and business transformation. Over the course of his career, he has held leadership roles across organizations such as Adobe and Oracle. And he has also built multiple ventures as a founder and CXO. Recognized among the 24 of 2024 tech pioneers, CTOs building the future of technology, Ganesh is an inventor with more than 10 patents on his name, a TEDx, NASCOM, and IEEE speaker, and the author of Improve On, a book focused on driving excellence transformation for individuals and enterprises. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today, Ganesh.
Thank you.
Let's begin our discussion.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Ganesh. So, Ganesh, let me start this discussion today with a simple observation. Everyone or everywhere will look, AI seems to be moving faster than expected. New tools are launching every week, companies are investing aggressively and heavily, and yet many leaders continue to tell us their workforce isn't quite ready, you see. So, despite high AI adoption, why do most employees still feel unprepared to use it well? What's really driving the gap, according to you?
Sure. Um, so I think I like to draw some inspirations from history. Whenever any kind of technology disruption has happened, there is always been a gap actually. If you look at the first wave of computerization, It didn't happen, over a period of, a few months. It happened over a period of few years or maybe decade actually, right? In fact, if you look at AI, the adoption has been much more rapid than any of the previous disruptions.
Mhm.
So having said that, on so if we look at AI, AI is another basically technology tool that has been given to people. But what do they do with this tool? So first part is basically getting access to the tool. Right
Mhm.
now,
Mhm.
it's like um, car was invented and people were given the car, right? Or let's say printing press was invented and it became available. But was the distribution network of the books available or not, right? Did were people accustomed to reading books that often or not? It took some time, right? So similarly with the AI, the tool is there, and we have plethora of tools now, likes of Chat GPT, Claude, and so on and so forth, Gemini, um, and people are kind of experimenting with it. So we'll have to give them that space to experiment, and eventually they will start to figure it out, that how they can use this effectively for their day-to-day work and for business operation, which they have started to do. And in some of the areas, we are seeing early gains, uh, but we just have to be a little bit more patient to see more gains come out.
Okay, so that's quite interesting, Ganesh. So what stands out is that the organization seems to be making progress on technology adoption. However,
Yes.
workforce confidence and capability aren't probably necessarily moving at the same pace which is expected out of them, right?
Yeah, both actually, because uh, in terms of even access also, people are experimenting on their own. At times, enterprises are not giving access to these tools because of various hurdles which they see related to data privacy, legal issues, right? Fear of unknown, and so on. So I think the first step is, of course, basically making it available to the workforce, and giving them a safe space where they can experiment with proper guardrails. And
Oh,
once they kind of get used to it, uh, then they will themselves try to start figuring it out how they can use it in their day-to-day work.
okay. So then it raises probably a bigger question and just a leading question to the
Hmm,
previous one.
hmm,
Whenever we discuss AI readiness, Ganesh,
hmm.
the conversation often defaults to skills, right? But
Right,
the organizations are also dealing with cultural resistance, leadership challenges, legacy systems, and structural barriers as well, right?
right,
So,
right.
if you had to diagnose the problem, is
Hmm.
this primarily a skill challenge, a mindset challenge, a structural challenge, or probably a combination of all the three? So, what's your take on this?
Okay, short answer to that is combination of all these three, right?
Mhm. Okay.
But let's basically, dissect them and diagnose each one by one, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, now, if you have to drive a car, you first need a car, right?
Absolutely.
You can't just keep on playing a video game and say, I've learned how to drive, right? So
Right.
same is the case over here. First of all, the enterprise have to get ready in terms of, so they have to put a structure in place whereby basically they give access to the people to start using these tools. And so they have to then set up a governance system as to what are the boundaries within which they can use these tools, because this is a new technology. And you know uh, there are basically different, as I shared, there are different tiers of licenses which are there, and the data which is being processed by them, how that is handled is very critical. So that is a decision at an enterprise level every enterprise has to take, and then give access to the people to experiment with these tools. So that's the next step in the structure, that give them basically a space, a
Mhm.
safe space where they can experiment. and learn. And they may fail actually. They may create prototypes, POCs, which may work, which may not work, because it's a learning process, right? So, it's similar to basically as you're trying to learn to drive a car.
Right.
It's not that you would most of the people would learn it at the first go itself, right? They
Mm,
may have problem with turning and braking and accelerating and so on, right? So same is the case with any new technology, and that is the case with the AI also.
mm,
So give them the space to learn, get a good handle, and when they feel comfortable, see, that's where basically then you start to tell them, okay, what are the different scenarios where you can use it, and what are the kind of skills that you need. So, for example, um, you might have, heard a term called prompting, right?
mm.
Now,
Absolutely.
um, so you can use basically, let's say, a pinball hammer to, put a nail, but you don't need a sledgehammer to put a nail in the wall, right? So what is it that basically, uh, what kind of prompts that you need to do your job more effectively? And uh, that brings us a question of basically then the costing also. That what are the kind of models that you should be leveraging to the level of accuracy or to the level of effectiveness that you want the AI to work for you, right? So that's the skill part of it, right? So I shared the example of prompting, but if you go to more advanced usage, then how do you basically build a multi-agentic system which would help you to put together a complete solution to achieve a business objective, right? So that's a skill part. Now the mindset shift, right, is the other part. That okay, you have experimented with it, how these tool works. You build the skills that whether you need a small model or a LLM, or what kind of a agentic solution that you can put to solve a business problem. Third is basically then the mindset shift, right? Which is basically we are ready, and now let's basically go for a long drive. Let's say to New Delhi to Mumbai on the road, right?
Mhm.
So then you basically start to transition your business operations, or basically start to transition this technology into the various workflow into your business operations, right?
Right.
So all three are important, and I shared some of the insights related to a little bit of each of these.
Sure. That's a very good observation by you, Ganesh, because you are suggesting that it's okay to fail.
Yes,
That's an
yes,
important point, you see,
absolutely,
because
absolutely,
many organizations immediately respond by probably launching a training program, but perhaps the problem is broader than just the training alone, you see. So let's
correct.
push this a little further. So, can organizations truly retrain their way through this disruption, or will some roles inevitably shrink? Should mid-career professionals feel optimistic or concerned about this?
So the short answer again is yes, retraining would be needed, right?
Mhm.
Because AI is all pervasive. Um, we are seeing usage of AI in all walks of life. If I talk about an enterprise and if I break it down by functions, uh, let's start with the HR function. There is a use of
Mhm.
AI, right? Let's go to the finance function. There is a use of AI, right? I mean, you take a receipt, right, and scan it. It will auto classify and put all the details, right, in your tool. Okay. If you look at HR function, there are AI screening of resumes that happen. It is widely known now, right? If you go to basically um, sales and marketing, right? So if you look at marketing campaigns, a lot of it is basically, there is a lot of AI generated content which is leverage to target particular, customer segments, right? So there is AI over there. If you look at basically support function, a lot of, customer support is moving towards AI now. So AI is basically all pervasive, right? And in the core functions also, if I talk about a typical software development company where engineering is the core function, in coding itself, a lot of AI is being used, or in testing, a lot of it is being used. Even in basically requirement gathering, the AI is being leveraged. Now, having said that, right, and I've just talked about, the functions in a enterprise. I've not even gone domain wise. So if you look at domain wise, whether it is, health sector or financial sector or manufacturing sector, right, and so on and so forth. And there are different departments in each of these in any enterprise pertaining to these domains. So AI is basically getting in over there, right? So, you know, there's no option now, right? Everybody has to learn how to use AI. But the next question is that how to use it effectively, right? And when we do that, there would be certain tasks which were, you know, really grunt work, right? So, for
Mhm.
example, let's say the manual coding which was being done. So, a
Mhm.
lot of it was done by coding agents, or let's say, the voice calling which was being done, right, in the customer support. A lot of it would be taken over by. It is already being taken over by, AI-based agents. Um, so the question then comes is basically that what is the part which basically AI is not able to do, right? How do basically you train your workforce to take on those things to give more value add, right, to the
Mhm.
service, or the work that each and every individual is supposed to do, right?
Mhm.
And second
Mhm.
is even to basically when they use these tools to do their day-to-day jobs, how effective they are in terms of using these tools so that they can do their work more effectively, right?
Mhm.
So you, you have to train the workforce. There's no way other out. There's no other way out. And for people, they have to equip themselves with the this new tooling, and to ensure that whatever grunt work that they have been doing, that is taken over by these AI. Because if they don't do it, uh, the other professional who's in competition,
Right.
if that learns, he's going to take up your job, right? So you got to remain competitive in the workplace, and the organization basically would try to basically make their workforce competitive because they have to compete in the marketplace with the other competitors which are in the in that space, right? So, retrain, yes, right? See basically what are the areas which AI is not able to handle or where human in the loop is needed. So
Mhm.
skill the people in that direction, right? And make people more, effective with the AI tooling. That should be the way forward.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are my thoughts.
And the tools have to be also those tools which can be easily adopted as well, right, and are user friendly, so that there are no reservations from the employees when it comes to taking up those tools,
Absolutely.
and it becomes part of the culture of the organization itself.
Absolutely, right? So, a proper evaluation and selection of the tools and a
Mhm.
governance structure, right? Where
Right.
it's not just one time, but from time to
Mhm.
time it is happening. That will
Right.
become very, very important because at the end of the day, somebody has to own the accountability of it, right?
Right. Right.
And you can't say, something went wrong because AI was taking care of it.
Mhm.
No, the
Well,
humans sitting in the
so you
organization
made a
have
very
responsibility.
good observation over here. So my next question is exactly the same, Ganesh.
Hmm.
So is AI readiness really an employee problem, or it is a leadership problem? And what separates an AI aware leader from an AI ready leader?
Okay.
The
Yeah, that's an excellent.
differentiation between AI aware leader and an AI ready leader.
Ready leader. Yeah, that's an excellent question, and I think all over people are dealing with this. So it's about leadership to start with,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And you broke it down very nicely, aware versus ready, right?
Mhm.
Now, you know the leaders have not just to be aware. Awareness has to be there. I mean, if they are not, then they should themselves undergo training programs and make sure that they know where the state of the art of the things is actually, right? Especially related to your domain, the toolings that they use, how AI is being leveraged in that, right? That's
Mhm.
the awareness part, right? That is a must have. Second is a more challenging part, which is AI ready. right? That, identifying which all areas they have to start leveraging AI, such that basically it benefits, their business, of course, both in terms of top line and the bottom line, right? And not just basically on the financial side, but also on the, customer satisfaction and the employee satisfaction side, right? So first part is basically the leadership has to, so it starts with the leadership. They have to be aware and they have to basically, figure it out how to get their whole organization and the workforce ready. So whether they set up a task force or whatever structure and governance, structure they want to, execution and governance structure they want to put in place, they will have to figure that out, right? And then is of course basically, working through the organization layers and ensuring that, this integration is happening, right?
Mm.
Because one part is creating that vision of being readiness. Second is basically, execution of that AI is getting integrated right into the various part, but in the construct of the governance layer that they have put, so that, it doesn't go off track, it gives results as expected, right? And
Mm.
also, secures or give direction to the workforce as to what are the kind of guardrails that they
Mm.
have to be really clear about. For example, let's say, they want to use a coding tool, but what are the kind of things, they have to look into the license of a coding tool, which they should be adhering to, or they should be aware of before basically start to use it, right?
Mm.
Second example could be, let's say, if a customer support solution is there, if AI models are being used, what kind of AI models are being used, and the data that they are handling, uh, what are the, security aspects of that data, especially, if there is a PI information, how that PI information being handled at the model level, that is very, very important, right? So yeah, yeah, so
Okay.
it starts from the top and then percolates down. At the bottommost layer, the young generation is really enthusiastic, right? In fact, enthusiastic to the extent that some government have started to ban the UI of use of AI below a certain age, so that their cognitive development doesn't stop. So
Oh,
that's another thing, that even in the organization, we have to ensure, right? The leadership has to ensure the way they put the structure that, it is a tool that the teams are using, but the human in the loop, keeps that agency to make the final, decision whether it is acceptable or not acceptable. Autonomy has to be built in after a very serious, consideration, right? Because the AI is not an AGI level, right? So you have to really pick up the use case and scenarios where you think, you can automate and where basically your human in loop has to be there. So that is a very important aspect. Again, the leadership has to put a structure to oversee that.
interesting observation, Ganesh, over here. So, okay, that's great. So, one aspect of this conversation
Hmm,
probably that doesn't receive enough attention that is fear. While everyone probably is talking about the buzz thing, AI, but no one is talking about fear at all. That's the harsh reality, the ground reality as well, which is there, but no one talks about it. So the technology story is exciting for
hmm,
sure, no two ways about that.
hmm.
But for many employees, it's also deeply personal as well, Ganesh.
Yes.
Today, around probably 40% of the workers say they worry about losing their job to AI.
Hmm.
So, according to you, how should organizations address employee anxiety about this job loss without dismissing it, probably? And what does meaningful employee involvement in AI adoption really look like, according to you?
Hmm. Okay, again, I would draw some inspirations from history and
Mhm,
share some examples
mhm,
to address this aspect of, employability and job loss fear. If you look at, the era in early 20th century, when automobile just started to come in, right, and assembly line manufacturing was still, not that popular. Um, Custom automobiles were built, but they were picking up. So how were people, managing the transportation at that point of time? It was managed through horses, right? Uh, they were like millions of horses, right? They were horse riders, right? Um, so that kind of basically infrastructure existed. People with horse riding skills were needed, right? And so on and so forth. As the automobile started to pick up, uh, we didn't need we didn't need horses, and we didn't even need horse riders, right? So that skill started to go down, right? But another skill started to take shape, which was basically people with good driving skills, right?
Mm.
So cabs came in, right? People started to own their own individual cars, right?
Mm.
Today, it's you know, such a multi-billion-dollar market actually, right? Uh,
Mm.
Similarly, you know, um, if you look at uh, cloth industry, right?
Mm.
Lot of cloth was hand woven, right?
Mm.
And for the first time, when power looms came in, people who used to weave cloth by hand, uh, they felt highly insecure, especially people who were, in their later ages.
Mhm.
Uh, and slowly and gradually, there were a lot of demonstrations and people, objected to basically having these highly mechanized looms, right? Uh,
Mhm.
but over a period of time, they started to see that their next generation do not have to struggle making the cloth, as they used to actually, right? And they
Mhm.
started to accept it, and a new kind of, market emerged, right?
Mhm.
Both in case of automobile and over here also in power loom. Did the cloth consumption go down? No. Did the transportation go down? No. Right?
Mhm.
In fact, it multiplied, right?
Mhm.
Similar was the case with computerization, right? A lot of work was done handwritten. I remember opening up my first account, going to the bank. There was a paper ledger and a paper-based form that I had to fill up, and I had a paper-based passbook. And every time I used to go to withdraw money, they would update manually the ledger, right? And so
Absolutely. I recall that one has to stand in large queues just to update their passbooks in banks.
exactly, exactly. But now you can anywhere through your mobile phone do it, right?
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
when computerization was happening, there was a lot of fear that the jobs will go away. But nobody at that point of time envisioned that there would be so many programmers, the businesses will grow so many, right? Have the bank shrunk?
Mhm.
No. Banking is at people's, hand now, right? Banking operations are multiplied so much. Okay. So whenever these new things come, it will, open up new opportunities. Now, coming specifically to basically the current scenario of AI. Sure, the manual work that was being done, the grunt work, a lot of it would be taken up by AI, right? Which means that the people would be getting more free space to to be creative in their work, right? And take on other aspects of their work, or maybe take on new work, right? And that's a direction people should be looking forward to. Yes, there will be an anxiety that some of the job functions uh, may be taken over by AI, but they have to start figuring it out, and that's where the enterprises have to help people to figure out that with the time which is freed up from their grunt work, what is the new thing that they can do, right? Because even for the organization, they would have to come up with innovative solutions in the marketplace, because productivity gain would be a common denominator across the competition. So what is the next thing, right, to basically they have to do to beat the competition, to stay ahead in the game, right? That's what they will have to do, and there are many examples of this. So if you look at, for example, in the photography industry, Kodak versus some of the other camera manufacturers like Nikon, right? Kodak was very happy, selling films and cameras, and they thought they're the number one. But the
Mhm.
digital technology disrupted that market, right? And photographers, shifted, right? Initially, they were very used to the film, but then they shifted to digital, right?
Mhm.
Kodak, you know, failed to make the transition, right, and hence lost the market share, right? There are many such examples, right? Nokia was a leader, in the cell phone market, right? But the transition to the smartphone, right, they were not able to do. But behind these companies are the people, right, with the skills which are forward looking. So if they scale up, right, and the enterprise enable them to scale up, right, then it's not just the people who will scale up, but the enterprise would also scale up, right? So, so the enterprises have to enable that, right, to lay off that fear and build the resources to take on to the new direction.
Okay. That's a very strong observation by you, Ganesh. So, I will just take a leaf from your book. The analogy which you gave for horse riders moving towards cab drivers. So,
Yeah.
this brings to an very important question, probably, which most of the businesses are facing or want an answer for. So, do we hire AI native talent from outside, or do we invest in the workforce we already have? So, do we convert horse riders into cab drivers, or we probably hire cab drivers from outside? Because research suggests external hiring can cost significantly more than obviously internal redeployment, but redeployment probably will also have their own pros and cons. So
Yeah.
according to you, should organizations hire AI native talent from outside, or invest in upskilling their existing workforce? Or probably there could be a point where buying talent becomes unavoidable, and they have to just go for outside hunting, or there could be a balance between the both the things. So what's your take on this?
Okay. Short answer to that is build your own internal resources, right? Because your internal resources know a lot about your the organization. There's a lot of information in the organization which is non-documented in tacit in the heads of
Mhm.
people, right?
Mhm.
For example, the culture of an organization, right? How people are binded together, right? And they work. In fact, I've covered this kind of an aspect in my book Improve On also, right? But that's very critical actually, right? The cultural aspect, the value that they practice, uh, the the category of customers they have been handling, the category of product and services that they have been handling, right? All that information there. So that's why I said the short answer to that is, enable these resources, right? However, um, any organization, any enterprise in the marketplace is competing, right, with the other entities. Now, in order to stay competitive, you have to gauge how fast you are moving to stay ahead in the game. Now, if there you see that you're not moving fast enough, then as an second, let's say plan B, you should
Mhm.
then prepare yourself that how do you do later hiring and bring in the required talent to make sure that you're getting that pace, right? So that would be plan B. Plan A should be always to retrain your resources and make them capable to win the race actually. Yeah,
Sure. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Great. So, Ganesh, let's zoom out for a moment.
Hmm,
So, preparing societies for AI cannot be just the responsibility of employers alone, right?
hmm,
So, universities, governments,
hmm,
industry bodies, and businesses all have their respective role to play, right?
hmm, hmm.
So, according to you, what role should universities, governments, and these industry bodies should play, and who should take the lead upfront? Is this the current, the current ecosystem of education or training which we have in our country? Do you think that it will be able to address the this current revolution which we are undergoing right now?
Okay. Yeah, this is very relevant, and actually, this is something. uh, we'll have to see how it evolves. But let me again basically, draw some inspiration from history. Before the printing press came, there used to be learned people. People will go to them and learn from them, right? But printing kind of democratized the knowledge, right? That you can capture that knowledge in a book and distribute. So it started to multiply, right? And then if I fast track, you come to the age of internet and computers. That information was available online on the click of a button, right?
Mm.
So you don't even have to at times go and buy a book because it is already there, right?
Mm.
And now you have these AI tools where it can even summarize and
Mm.
extract exactly what you're looking for, right?
Mm.
So the way basically knowledge was you know acquired, distributed, and acquired cycle, right? That has kind of basically, been changing over a period of time, and it has basically, been majorly disrupted now. Now, what was the role of a university? Let's say 100 years back, right? So there were basically set of these teachers who had acquired the knowledge. There were libraries. People will go to these. The better the teachers, the better the infrastructure, and they will get, access to that, right? Now the access to the book part, as I said, is kind of democratized. We have internet and everything. And then comes a teacher. Now teacher was able to basically analyze everything, understand the student, and then kind of basically, good teachers were able to teach better, right? And then there was set of teachers who were very good in research, very accomplished, but they were not good teachers, right? Now the beauty of the AI based systems now is that you know whatever you're not understanding, you can pose questions to it, as you would do to a teacher, and it will respond to you. So, given the clarity that you have, what you want to do, or the skill that you want to acquire, you have this, teacher all the time available to you. Of course, it's not to the level that a human teacher would be in terms of, understanding the various psychological aspects of you, your body language, and so on and so forth. But maybe eventually when the world models come, that will also happen. But that's a distance, that's still in future. So if you look at the current way, the young generation going to the universities are acquiring, have tools to acquire the knowledge, right, and to equip themselves with the skills, has changed that, right? uh, so and this is something that the universities have to understand, and therefore they have to change the way basically they are preparing the kids, right?
Mm.
It cannot be the traditional way, right? Some of the things which were done in the traditional way, that understanding the psychological needs of the kid, right, or doing a one-on-one coaching to the kid, all those aspects are still human driven, right?
Right.
But in terms of that, this is a, let's say, a physics problem, right, and I want a solution to it, and the solution that comes and you're not able to understand parts of it, you can ask AI to explain it to you and it will do that, right? So that's not the area where basically the value add will come from. It will come more from human to human interaction, and how do you basically steer the student in the generation, in the journey of skill building, right? So it's not just knowledge imparting, right? It's more towards what are the other factors which go in basically building the student for the future. That will become more and more important for a lecturer or a professor or whatever. Maybe these terminologies will also change, I don't know.
Mm.
So
So
yeah.
when you say, I don't know, I wish someone in this world should have had a crystal ball, because that brings to my next question, which is on a very human note, that there are probably people, today also listening to us today in this particular webinar, who are
Hmm.
genuinely worried that AI will probably take their job, or probably will make their role obsolete, and probably maybe many would be wondering that whether their role will still exist 5 years down the line, right? And they feel that they are already behind, right? So that's why I said that when you say, I don't know, I wish someone should have had that crystal ball who can predict that, okay, your role is there, but that role is not there, so that probably accordingly one can make those take those decisive actions and make those changes and transform themselves. So for someone who is watching this webinar today, Ganesh, who is really worried, genuinely worried that what lies ahead, so what's your advice to them?
Okay, so first of all, you know, worries, worry itself is not going to solve a problem, but worry should be taken as an inspiration. It is good, at times it is good to worry actually, right? But of course, it should not overwhelm you, right? It should be in a positive way. Change is the only constant, in our civilization. Humans are very innovative. They have innovated in the past, and what we are doing right now, even if we are watching this webinar, it is a result of disruptive technologies only, right? Um, so, but we have to prepare ourselves for that, right? So, uh, coming specifically to the AI technologies, yes, you should be consciously worried about your job, but do an objective analysis. That now, in order to do the objective analysis, you have to build your knowledge, which means basically do basic courses on AI and specifically and try to understand what kind of AI tooling is being used in your area of work, right? In your area of product and services also, right? Because some of the product and services, whenever new technologies come in, they completely shut down. As I shared the example of, horses versus cars, right? So the whole infrastructure for horses and everything went away. But for the car, it came up. So there was need for drivers, mechanics, electricians, painters, and so on, right? Um, car designers, right, and so on and so forth. So there'll be multiple roles, right, which would be AI augmented that will start to come in. But so you have to start educating yourself, right, about AI, how it affects your job work, how it affects your industry, product and service, and then from there, start to figure out that how you have to equip yourself, right, and once you equip yourself, you become competitive. Actually, you are ahead in the game already, right? So, and only the people who worry actually will survive the coming era. So if you are worried, it's a good sign. It's the first good sign. But second step is basically to start now taking care of that worry, right? To basically, go about in a systematic way, studying AI, systematic way, analyzing your job function, your product and service, your company, right? Your competitive landscape, and then see what are the things that you got to acquire as a skill to stay ahead in the game. That's what I'd say. So it's a great time to get away with the grunt work and bring more addition to the role that you are playing.
That's genuinely a great piece of advice for all the people who are listening to us today, Ganesh. And probably many of them probably will take the leap out of it and will try to implement it as well, right? So,
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
this is a fascinating conversation which we are having today, Ganesh, and probably we can go on and on for another hour. And because this is such an interesting topic, but I'm afraid that's the time today which we have for this particular discussion and webinar. So now it's time to see if we have a few questions from the audience. So I'll just check whether we have few
Mhm.
questions from the audience as well. So we have one question for you, Ganesh.
Mhm.
If we have to give 2 to 3 hours per day
Mhm.
as a fresher developer, which skill should I learn first? That is from one of our listeners today. If one
Uh,
has to devote two to
uh-huh.
three hours per day as a fresher developer, which skill probably is in demand they should go for right now?
Okay, okay, okay. So if you're a fresher and you're a developer, right? First of all, you should know how to use AI coding agents effectively, right?
Mhm.
That's the first thing, uh, which means basically, let's say, likes of Copilot or Cloud Code or Cursor, right? You should know how to use these tools, and you should also understand that, for solving different kind of problems, coding problems, what are the kind of different models that you should be using, right? Second is basically, the agentic system. How do you basically, build, agents? What are the different parts of an agent? What are the different technologies that exist to make these agents? And then how do you go about solving a real life problem, especially a business problem, using a good multi, AI agent system? Third is basically the deployment part, which is basically how do you deploy these solutions and make them run 24 by 7 and maintain them, right? And to build effective guardrails so that they behave as expected and not give outcomes which are not unexpected. And that includes basically that how do you take care of hallucinations also.
Okay.
So short answer, if you're a developer and a fresher, uh, equip yourself with all the coding tools which are there, AI based, and learn about agentic systems and how to, build multi-AI agentic systems. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks, Ganesh. I hope this answers the query of uh, this individual. And
Yeah.
the next one, which is an
And
interesting one.
just to add a little bit more,
Yep.
AI is a vast field. So, apart from this, if your interest is in research, right, there is so much happening in the research. You can do, take up, you can go to, sites like Kaggle and participates in competition over there. Develop your skills further, showcase to the world that what are the AI thing, what all AI things you can do. So there are a whole lot of opportunities. So research is one big area where you can, start to develop yourself. Even in terms of, AI technologies, apart from just coding, there are many things that are happening, right? Let's say related to medicine research, right? Or let's say related to basically how do you, make effective supply chain solutions, right? So all over the place. So you can figure it out. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, and there are many good sites. You can just go there. Kaggle is one I mentioned. There is very good site from Andrews Inc. Called deeplearning.ai. I think every fresher should go there because Andrew and Inc. Keep on rolling out very interesting courses. So, yeah, right.
Yeah, thanks, Ganesh. So, Ganesh, this brings to our next question from one of our attendees.
Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm a fresher, then what should I focus more on? Should I just focus on probably getting a training for myself and getting myself probably certified through that particular training program? Or should I focus on real time projects and attaining the technical skills? So, I mean, the question is whether I should get my hands dirty by working on the projects, real time projects, or should I just focus on training and certification as a fresher? What's your take on this?
So I think uh, it's very important to basically get your hands dirty, right, and deliver on projects. So, I'm a big promoter of that, or believer of that. But to reach there, you need to acquire those skills. So you should basically undergo, training programs. Um, and it's kind of okay to acquire certificates because you can it looks good on your resume. And second is basically it helps you to get shortlisted through the AI based screening systems, right? So but it will be good to basically put you in resume the projects that you have done and share the GitHub link to the projects. And if you've deployed them somewhere, let's say on Vercel and so on, share
Mhm.
the link to that as well, right? So because um, once you get the job, it's how you work or the task that is given to you and deliver on that. And if you have done an earlier hands-on, that helps. But to reach to that level, it's important to basically, acquire the skills actually, right? So I would say both actually. Yeah.
Okay, great, fantastic. So, our next question from one of our attendees is that as a mid-career professional,
Hmm.
I have domain expertise,
Hmm.
but I have very less AI exposure. So, what should I do to stay relevant without starting from the scratch?
You're already relevant actually, because domain expertise is not an easy thing to acquire, right?
Mm,
Um uh, uh, to craft a good jewelry, let's say, it takes years of expertise, right?
right.
Or to basically understand, what are the customers, what are their likes and dislikes, and how the market operates for that given customer segment. These are, this is a very fine information which exists in the heads of the people. So if you understand a domain, I think you've already basically achieved a lot, right? Because in the era of AI, how do you basically, use your domain knowledge along with the AI tools to become more productive, right? And to do better analysis of whatever you're doing so as to generate more value added outcome. Uh, that is going to be the forward direction. So you're in a great position. I mean, you have the domain knowledge, and now you have a great assistant with intelligence.
And this brings to our last question for the day. And it's an interesting one, Ganesh,
Mhm.
wherein someone is asking that how can leaders build trust when 40% of the workforce is actively worried about their job security? So, how do we bridge that gap of, trusting people?
Absolutely, absolutely. So first of leaders should address this, upfront, right? They should acknowledge that fear, that yes, AI is for real, and it has started to work in a lot of areas where it is basically taking up the grunt work, and it is going to improve from wherever it is. Um, and in order to basically help them overcome that kind of a fear, they should chalk out programs where they're educating these people about AI and AI tools and how it basically impacts their job functions. And then without any without any mandate, right, leave it to them to figure it out, that how they can improve their outcomes, right? So and then encourage them to use these tools to enable outcomes and reward on the basis of outcomes, right? That way, the whole workforce sees a direction in which they have to move. But if they don't address it, then there is this lack of unknown,
Mm.
where nobody is helping them in that unknown waters, and they feel lost and they feel fearful. So the role of leadership is very, very important, to hold the hand of the people and to show them, right? Yes, we are in troubled waters, right? But we have got boats for you, right? And we will learn how to steer out of these troubled waters and learn how to sail safely through these troubled waters. So they have to be, working along with the with all these people in their enterprise, uh, to get them ready, right, for this next wave which is coming. Actually, yeah,
That's great insights, Ganesh.
yeah,
Thank you.
sure, sure.
So, as we close today's discussion, so what I understand is that one thing is quite clear, that AI readiness is no longer just a technology challenge, probably, it's a people challenge, right? And we've explored the growing gap between technological advancement and workforce readiness, the role of leadership, which we have discussed today, the importance of continuous learning, we have discussed today, and what organizations must do to prepare for a future where AI becomes part of their everyday work. That is something
Yeah,
which we have discussed today. So, thank you very much for your time today, Ganesh, for
sure.
sharing your valuable insights and perspectives. It was great having you with us today. And thank you, everyone who has joined us today. Your participation made this discussion richer and more meaningful. And on behalf of Team Leads Digital, thank you, everyone, once again. We hope to see you in our next tech studio session in the coming days. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having